Welcome to Efiwe, excellence without stress.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to another Efiwe JAMB biology series. Excellence without stress. So today we'll be talking about supporting system, the way the body of living organisms are supported. We talk about skeleton, we talk about bones, and not just in animal, we also talk about plants, how plants supported, how are they able to stand, how are we able to stand, how are animals able to move. That we'll be diving into today. So first of all, we'll start with the introduction. So as we may already know, organisms, first of all, they evolved in water, and that water gave them support against the strong gravitational pull of the earth. But when you're on land, the air doesn't give you that same support. So that's why organisms that live on land, they have to develop a more complicated support system. So let's read what is written here. So organisms first evolved in water, which gave them support against the pull of the Earth's gravity, like I said. Then the air, which is most less dense than water, could not provide a similar support against gravitational pull for land organisms. I said that already. So thus, to be a little more than a non-motor jelly-like mass of cells, a land organism has to have a support system. So this is what I'm trying to explain. If we don't have a complex support system, we'll just be like jelly mass organism. You know how jellyfish are. That's how all of us will just be on land. But you see, we need to have a developed and a very complex support system. So the body movement in the complex animal is brought about by muscles, which work by what? Pulling on some kind of support. So that support, you have to have them. Because in order for us to move, we have to contract muscles. And muscles are attached to what? Bones and some other things. So that we need those support systems. So on the right hand side, you can see the skeleton of different land animals, and it's very complex. It's not the same as the ones that live in water. So now we talk about skeletal materials. So the skeleton, what are they made of? We talked about skeleton. So those skeletal materials, what can they be made of? So they can be made of mainly three things. So it's either chitin, cartilage, or bone. So the main type of material that is found in the skeleton of animals are what? Chitin, skeleton, and what? Sorry, chitin, cartilage, and bone. So first of all, we'll talk about chitin. Chitin is a tough, it's light, it's flexible material that is a major component of the skeleton of arthropods. So on the right hand side, you can see arthropods, which are insects, mostly insects. You can see beetles here. You can see cockroaches. You can see ants. So their skeleton has what we call chitin, and that chitin is what, take note, is tough and it's light, it's flexible, and that's the major component of the skeleton of arthropods. So it's a carbohydrate product that is very very similar to cellulose. I don't know if we talked about cellulose cell wall. We talk about plant cell. So this chitin is very very similar to cellulose. So, and that cellulose is what is a component of the cell wall of plants. So, what about cartilage? So, cartilage is a tissue that is found in the skeleton of complex vertebrates. So, there are many complex vertebrates that have what we call cartilage, which is a tissue, and it consists of what? Living cells. And what is the name of those cells? Chondroblasts. Please take note. The living cells that are found in cartilage are called what? Chondroblasts. It also contains what? Carbohydrates and what? Protein fibers. So, what are the characteristics of that cartilage? So, one, it is tough. It's also flexible, and it has what we call tensile strength. It's tough, it's flexible, it has what we call tensile strength. So it helps to have as a what, a shock absorber. So most times when the organism is there's a force, so that cartilage can help to absorb that shock so that it won't affect the organism so much. So it helps to cushion the effect of bone moving against bone when they move. So when bone glide against bone, cartilage is usually between two bones to prevent that to absorb that shock. It cushions that effect. So cartilage also forms the internal skeletal system of what? Shark and rays. Please take note. This is a very common jam question. So shark and ray, all their skeleton is cartilage. That's it. Cartilage is enough for them. But in mammals, we have three types of cartilage. We have hyaline cartilage, we have fibrocartilage, and we have elastic cartilage. So we'll delve into a little bit more details about each cartilage, and we'll see what they have. So hyaline cartilage is made up of, it makes up the rings that support the trachea. You know the trachea that we talked about in our respiratory system. That we also call it windpipe. That's where air passes from the nose into the lung. So the rings that make it up, they are supported by cartilage, specifically hyaline cartilage. If that cartilage was not there, it will collapse. And if it collapses, air cannot go through, and that will lead to suffocation. So we need something to open it up so that it will be open at all times. So whenever you breathe it, the air can easily go through to your lungs. And it also supports the bronchi and it keeps them open. And take note, hyaline cartilage also covers the surface of movable joints. So those two joints that they move against each other, I've already said it. They are cartilage in between them. And why are they cartilage in between them? To cushion the effect. So when bone glides a bit on top bone, it helps to cushion that effect, cushion the shock, reduce friction. So and the cartilage that's between bones are called what? Hyaline cartilage. And it also supports the protruding part of the nose. So this part of our nose is made of cartilage. So take note of that, please. I've said three places. The trachea, also the bronchi. It's also between two movable joints. It's also what supports the protruding part of our nose. So what about fibrocartilage? It's tougher than hyaline cartilage, and it's found in discs between small bone. That's the vertebrae, your vertebral column. You know that your backbone, the discs between them, it contains fibrocartilage. Please take note of this. It's a common jam question. What about elastic cartilage? It's present in what? External ear and what? Epiglottis. Your external ear and your epiglottis. Epiglottis is what covers the windpipe so that food will not go through it. So that epiglottis is made up of what? Elastic cartilage. It also supports what? Eustachian tube and what? External ear canal. When I was also learning too, this elastic cartilage, the places they are found was easy for me to learn. Elastic cartilage is E, and everything was just E. External ear, epiglottis, eustachian tube, external ear canal. So most of them are usually E. So it's very easy for me to always remember. So now this is a picture that talks much about the cartilages that we just talked about, and it also gives pictures. So you can learn about the locations. For example, hyaline cartilage, where they are located, their functions. Elastic cartilage, the same thing, where they are located, their function, and same thing with fibrocartilage. You can also see the picture on the right hand side. These are stains. H and E stain. We call some other. These are H and E stain. So these are stains of cartilage. So on this right hand side, you can see the picture of hyaline cartilage. Why here you can see elastic cartilage, and why here you can see fibrocartilage. So I want you to stay with this slide and understand, because they give a lot of location, the function of the cartilage, the elastic cartilage, the same thing. So please try as much as possible before you leave. You should be able to get everything here in your head, please. So now we'll talk about bone. So bone is also a tissue. So the tissue is the major component of the vertebrate skeleton. I'm sure most of us have heard of bone. So the major skeletal component of vertebrate skeleton is bone. And it also consists of living bone cells. Remember, there are the living cells in what? Cartilage were called what? Chondroblast. But these ones are called osteocytes. And we also contain protein fibers, just like cartilage. But unlike cartilage, it contains mineral. And that mineral is usually what? Calcium phosphate and calcium carbonate. Hope we get that. It's almost the same thing with cartilage. It has a living cell, osteocyte. Cartilage was chondroblast. It also has protein fibers like cartilage. But this one, it has minerals, unlike cartilage. And that mineral is usually what? Calcium phosphate and calcium carbonate. So the minerals, which is a non-living part, is made up of 2/3 of the mass of bone. So most part of the bone is made up of that mineral. Most part, 2/3. Just 1/3 is the living component, but the 2/3 is the mineralized component. So as a result, the bone is a stronger and a more rigid tissue than cartilage. And bones have their own blood supply to nourish them. Since it's cell, since it's living, it has to have its own blood supply. So on the right hand side, you can see the picture of a bone structure. You can see the epiphysis, the diaphysis, and the distal epiphysis. So you can spend more time with the structure of the bone so that you can get familiar with it. So what are the type of skeletons we have in organisms? So we have what we call hydrostatic skeleton. We also have what we call exoskeleton, and we also have what we call endoskeleton. So we'll talk a little bit more about this skeleton. So what's the hydrostatic skeleton? So hydrostatic skeleton is a skeleton that is formed by fluid-filled components. Fluid-filled compartment within the body called a coelom. So inside the body of organisms that have hydrostatic skeleton, they have a space that is filled with fluid. So this compartment is under hydrostatic pressure because of the fluid, and it supports the organs of the organism. This is somehow like it's physics, because hydrostatic pressure, these are things we talk about in physics. But you know that organisms, they have a cavity, a space in which a fluid is present, and that fluid helps to give them pressure, making them, supporting them. That's the point. So this type of skeletal component is found in what? Sub-body animals such as what? Sea anemones. Please take note. Take note. These examples, please take note of them. Earthworms, cnidaria, and other invertebrates. Cnidaria are hydra. So please take jellyfish. So please take note of this. These are the organisms you can find. From the name hydra means water or fluid, means liquid. So there's liquid inside that helps them to provide a pressure that keeps them and support them. So these are the examples of the organisms that possess hydrostatic skeleton. So now we'll talk about exoskeleton. So from the name exo means external, outside. So the skeleton is found outside, externally. So an exoskeleton is an external skeleton, like I said, and it consists of a hard encasement. It's like hard encasement on the surface of an what? Of an organism. For example, what the shells of crabs and the insects, they are exoskeletons. So they are found outside the body. So if you have ever seen a crab, you can touch the back, you see how hard it is. That's the skeleton. Unlike most organisms that the skeleton will be found inside the body. For an organism like a crab or many insects, their skeleton is found outside. So we call it exoskeleton. So this skeleton type provides defense against predator. This crab, it will be very hard for predator to just take it and put his teeth into it and eat it because the skeleton is hard, protecting inside of the body. It also supports the body and it allows for movement through what? Contraction of attached muscles. So as with vertebrates, muscles must cross a joint inside the exoskeleton. That's the normal thing. Muscles has to cross a joint. So that's taking of those important points. So for an endoskeleton, another thing to take note in this exoskeleton is that since the skeleton is already outside the body, when the organism want to grow, you have to shed those skeleton. In the process what we call molting, you have to molt out of the skeleton in order to provide another skeleton. So what about endoskeleton? An endoskeleton is a skeleton that consists of the what? Hard mineralized structure located within the soft tissue of organism. Inside, from the name endo, it's inside, it's not outside. So the bones of vertebrae are composed of tissues, whereas sponges have no true tissues. That's a very important point. Think of that. Sponges have no true tissue. So endoskeleton, they provide support for the body. They protect internal organs. For example, now our skull protects our brain. That's the skeleton. Our rib cage protects our lung and our heart. So those are skeletons. They protect internal organs, and they allow for movement through the contraction of muscles that are attached to the skeleton. For example, now you see me, I can move my hand. That's because the muscles that are here are attached to bone. You know, on my hand here we have humerus. We also have ulna and radius. So those are skeletal components in which our muscles can easily attach to provide movement. So please take note of that. So now we'll talk a little bit more about vertebrate skeleton. So for vertebrae, you know what vertebrates are? These are animals that have backbone, like ourselves. So we'll talk about axia and appendicular skeleton. So what's axial skeleton? From the name axia is in the axis, just not midline, axis. Those are where the skeleton are usually found. So the axial skeleton, they form the central axis, like I said, of the body, and they provide support and protection for vital organs. It's composed of the word skull. You know, the skull is in the middle, also composed of the vertebral column, also in the middle, and our rib cage, also in the middle. So those ones that are in your hands and leg, those are not in the middle. But the ones like our vertebral column, the ones like our skull, our rib cage, they are example of axial skeleton. So we know the skull, which is also called cranium, it protects the brain. Very important because the brain is a very, very important part of the body. And it houses sensory organs like the what eyes. You know, our eyes inside our skull and our ear located inside the skull. So that's what is called. They have to protect these delicate structures. So in human, the skull is made up of 22 bones that include the mandible, which is the lower jaw, and the maxilla, the upper jaw. So what about vertebral column? So the vertebral column of spine, usually colloquially called spine, is a flexible and sturdy structure made of what? Vertebrae. So in mammals, it includes what? Even in mammals, in humans, the vertebral column support the body and it protect the spinal cord. The spinal cord goes through that vertebral column. There's a space inside the vertebral column that helps to protect the spinal cord. And you know that the spinal cord is a very, very important component for survival of organisms. So what about the rib cage? So the rib cage protects the thoracic organs, such as the heart and the lungs. And in mammals, the rib articulates with the vertebral column at the back and the sternum at the front. And it forms a protective cage where the heart can just easily be inside. And you know that the heart is a very important part of living organisms. So next we'll talk about the appendicular skeleton. So what's the appendicular skeleton? So the appendicular skeleton consists of the limb and the associated girdles. So that means arms and legs. When we say limb, we're talking about the arms and the legs. So also the girdle, because we also have limb girdles, pelvic girdle and pectoral girdle. So what's the pectoral girdle? Also called shoulder girdle. So the pectoral girdle support the arms and it provides a point of attachment for muscles. Helps to provide many muscles attached to the pectoral girdle. So what's the example of that pectoral girdle? We have the scapula and also have the word clavicle. In humans, they form the pectoral girdle. So what about the pelvic girdle, also called hip girdle? So it supports the leg and it connects the lower limb to the axial skeleton. Very easy. The pectoral girdle will connect the upper limb, which is your hand, to the axial skeleton. While the pelvic girdle will connect what? Your legs, to the axial skeleton. Very easy. The pectoral girdle will connect the upper limb, which is your hand, to the axial skeleton. While the pelvic girdle will connect your legs also called lower limbs, to your axial skeleton. So what are the examples? In humans, the pelvic girdle consists of what? The hip bones, which are what? Ilium, ischium, and what? Pubis. So upper limb, we know upper limb, those are the bones, humerus, radius, ulnar, we have carpal bones, we have metacarpal bones, we have phalanges. So those are bones in your upper limbs. So in humans, the humerus is the long bone of the upper arm. Take note of that. So for the lower limb, it consists of what? We have femur, which is the longest bone for a human. We also have the tibia, we have the fibula, we have tarsal bones, we have metatarsals, and we also have phalanges. So, for example, the femur or thigh bone, femur is also called thigh bone, is the longest and the strongest bone in the human body. This is a question I've also seen a lot in JAMB questions. So please take note of that important point. So this is a picture that depicts the human skeleton. You can also just spend time with it, get familiarized with it, and you can know where each bone is located and the names of each bone. So what are the characteristics of a typical vertebrae? The typical vertebrae consists of several common features. It must have a body, which we also call centrum. So it's a thick anterior portion of the vertebrae that bears the weight. There will also be the vertebrae arc. There's also spinous process, also transverse processes, and there's also a vertebrae foramen. So that's where the spinal cord will pass. So please take note of these important features of a vertebrae. So we have different vertebrae. We have cervical vertebrae. Once you see the name cervical, that's to do with the neck. So we have C1 to C7. And there are some specialized parts of those vertebrae that we have to talk about. First of all, the atlas, which is the C1. So the first cervical vertebrae is called atlas, C1. So it's the one that supports your head, your neck supports the head. So the first cervical vertebrae that supports the skull and allows for nodding position. Please, this is a very important point. Atlas is for nodding. Please take note. So it lacks a body, also has an anterior and posterior arc. So it helps in the yes nodding. Please, once you see that question, yes nodding, your mind should go to what? Atlas. So what about axis? Axis is the second one, and this one is the one that helps for the no, helps to make your head rotate like this. Please take note. It helps for the side to side rotation of the head, as in the no motion. So we also have thoracic vertebrae, we have lumbar vertebrae, we also have sacral vertebrae, which sometimes they are fused. Not sometimes they are fused to form the sacrum. Just one piece of bone we call sacrum. And we also have the coccyx, which are also fused bone to form the one bone. So these are usually help to support the tail in all other organisms. But in humans, we don't have tail. So it's a vestigial organ. So it's one of those organs that we once before had, but we don't have again. So that's it for the coccyx. So this is a table that shows about the body region, the vertebrae that's there, the number in rabbits, the number in human, and the characteristic feature of each vertebrae. This is a very, very important table. Even if you don't gain anything from all the lecture, please, this table, you should live with it. Please, because a lot of questions come out from here. You should be able to know the body region, the vertebrae that is present there, the number of those vertebrates in rabbits, the number that are in humans, and the characteristic feature of those vertebrae. Please make sure you understand this for living. So what are the functions of vertebrae, bones, skeleton? What are the functions? So cervical vertebrae allow for a wide range of head movement. We said it before that axis is what? Sorry, atlas is what? Yes. So it's the bone that help me do like this. Why axis helps me what? Do like this. So the thoracic vertebrae, we said it before, provides support for the ribcage, protecting internal organ. So the lumbar vertebrae support the body weight. So the reason why we can stand and sit effectively, the lumbar vertebrae support that body weight. So the sacral vertebrae, it transfers those weights, from the body to the pelvic girdle. So the caudal vertebrae, it helps to contribute to the flexibility of the vertebrae column. So the axial skeleton, they provide what? Structural support. We talked about them. It protects vital organs, and it allows for the upright posture. The reason why you can stand uprightly. Why the appendicular skeleton, facilitate movement, motion. The reason why I can walk, the reason why I can move my hands around is due to my appendicular skeleton. So that's it for skeleton. Now we'll talk about joints. So what's joint? What are joints? So joints is a place where two or more bones meet to articulate. So when a bone comes and another bone comes and they meet, that's what we call joints. So what's the function of this joint? In plain and simple terms, joint allows for movement. If you notice, most places that the movement occurs in your body, those are the places that joints are. So the bones meeting at a joint, they are always held together by strong ligaments so that the bones will not pull apart. So strong ligaments always hold them. That prevents the dislocation during movement. So the degree of movement of a joint varies with the joint. Not all joints don't move together, don't move in the same function. You see this is my joint in my shoulder and the joint in my elbow. They can't move together, they can't move the same range of motion. So we'll see what we're talking about very soon. So the shoulder joint is the most mobile joint in the body. I can turn my shoulder anywhere I want to. I can make it anywhere. So it's the most mobile joint. Why the joints of the bones that form the cranium are immovable? Hope you know that there are also joints in the cranium. Inside is our skull. You can't move it. It's like immovable. They can't move at all. So a slightly movable joint is the one between the hip bones. So that's the one between the two hip bones. Slightly movable, especially mostly in female when they want to give birth. So take note of those points. So what are the type of movable joints? So number one, we have what? Ball and socket joints. So an perfect example is what? Shoulder joints. And also what? The hip joints. They are ball and socket joints. So for the shoulder joint, the head of the humerus is ball-like and it fits into a cavity in the scapula. We call it glenoid cavity. It's like ball and a socket, a ball going into a socket, and allow for movement in several directions. So similarly, the round head of the femur, like a ball, it fits into what we call acetabulum of the pelvis to form a freely articulating joint. So those are what we call it ball and socket joints, like a ball fitting into a socket. So now we talk about hinge joints. So it occurs at the elbow and what at the knee. Please take note, elbow and knee. The movement is limited to one direction only. You can only take it in one direction, one plane. So as the name implies, each set of the bones that make up this joint, they function like what? One half of a hinge. It's just like a door. Most doors you see can open it only one way. Open it here or open it here. So that's the way hinge joint works. So what about gliding or sliding joint? So this type of joint, they allows for the what? Sliding of bone over one another. Across the what? The wrist, found in the wrist, in the ankle, and other parts of the body. So we call it gliding or sliding joint. We also have what we call pivot joints. So this type of joint allows for the rotation of one part of the body another on another. So two parts of the body meeting and one rotates on another. So it is found between the atlas and axis. This is a very, very important point that you have to take note of. So pivot joint, they are found between the what? The atlas and the axis vertebrae. So the undotted process of the axis, it acts as a pivot that allows the rotation of the head of the vertebrae. That means the atlas and the skull together, they rotate about the odontoid process. Please take note of that. So what's the structure of a joint? So a joint usually includes the capsule that's made up of ligament. We remember what the ligament is. That the articulating surface of the bones, they are covered by what? Smooth cartilage. Which cartilage? Hyaline cartilage. We talked about this before. So this prevents the surface of the bones from what? Being worn out when they rub against each other. So when the bones are rubbing against each other, they don't tear off, they don't wear off. So that's the function of the cartilage. So between the surface of the articular cartilage is a sac-lined synovial membrane, and it is filled with a thick viscous fluid called the synovial fluid. So what about plants? We've talked about animals. So plants, they also need supporting structure. You can see a plant stand, not just falling, so it can stand. So what are those things that help to support the plants? So plants, they do not have to move about to obtain food. Since they undergo photosynthesis, they just need to stay in a place, receive sunlight, and produce their food. So they do not need a highly developed skeletal system like animals. Like we now, we have to walk around, get our food, and everything. But however, plants do not need supporting tissues. Sorry, they do need supporting tissues to remain upright, to spread out their branches and hold their leaf in the best position for trapping sunlight. They need to be supported to do things like this. So what are those supporting systems? So the important types of supporting system in plant, they are what? Solitary parenchyma. They are actually unspecialized plant cells. We have collenchyma, we have sclerenchyma, and we have xylem. Please take note of that. So what are the location and arrangement of those supporting tissues? So most terrestrial plants, they have an area shoot and an underground root system. That means their shoot is outside and their root is underground. So the roots are surrounded by soil that helps to grip them within them and press on them. That's why if inside the soil helps to give them support. That's for the root. So the movement of the shoot also exerts a pulling force on the root. So what about parenchyma? So the tissues consist of living cells that are thickened at the corners by what? The deposition of extra cellulose, and they help to provide support and mechanical strength. We talked about this in our internal structure of plant and animals. So they are usually what? Polygonal elongated cells with tapering ends. So please take note of that. So collenchyma is found in the what? Primary tissues of plants. So it is therefore an important supporting tissue in young plants. Please, this is a very important point. Important supporting tissue in what? In young plants. So herbaceous plant and plants or plant organs, so such as the leaf, in which secondary growth does not occur. So these are important points that you have to take note of. So what about sclerenchyma? So it consists of two types of cell, fibers and scleres. So both are dead cells in which the cell walls are what? They are heavily thickened, very heavily thickened. And why are they thickened? Due to the deposition of what we call lignin. And lignin is a hard substance that provide mechanical strength. The scleroderma fibers, they are narrow, they're also polygonal. Elongated cells, they also have tapering and walls. So the lumen is small. Why? Because the walls are too thick. They are thickened and they make the lumen very small. So the end walls of adjacent fibers interlock, forming long strands. So scleroderma fibers, they are arranged in bundles or sheets in the outer region of the cortex and the pericyte of cells, and also in vascular tissue. And what are those vascular tissue? Xylem and phloem. Please take note of that. So what about xylem? So xylem is what? It's the water conducting tissue that it also helps to strengthen the plants. So we know that xylem conducts water from the root to other parts. So once it conducts water, it becomes touched with water and it helps to support that plant, especially in plants that undergo secondary growth. So those are plants that xylem is usually found there. So there are four types of cells that make up the xylem tissue. We have the tracheids, we have the vessels, we have the fibers, and we have parenchyma. So of these, the first three are lignified, and they also provide mechanical support. So they are all lignified except parenchyma. So what about the type of responses? Because plants undergo what we call responses. There are ways plants will respond to certain stimuli. So what are the types of those responses? So generally, animals respond very quickly. If this place is hot, if you touch my body, I react very fast. So very quickly to external stimuli, while plants respond slowly. There's no way you just touch plants and plants will run away. It's not possible. But for animals, it's very quick. So again, only certain organs respond to external stimuli in plants. In animals, often the whole organism responds. If you touch me, I can easily move my whole body away. But for plants, it's a certain part of the plant. So when a receptor cell detects an external stimuli, it sends a message to the appropriate part of the organism to bring about, response. So the organs which make up the response to stimuli are called what we call effectors. So effectors, they bring down movement of the whole organism or parts of those organisms. The effectors in my body usually, if you touch me and I run away, effectors in my body now, they are muscles and bones. So what type of responses? So we have tropic response, we have static, we have nastic, and we also have sleeping movements in plants. So what's the nastic response? So these are responses that are shown by a part of a plant, what we call non-directional stimuli. So that's what? Change the light intensity, temperature, or humidity. These are questions that you almost cannot escape. Please take note of this. Nastic, non-directional, NN, they are non-directional stimuli. The response movement is also called, they are also non-directional, like I said. So what are the examples? The folding of mimosa plant when you touch them. It's not to touch them, it folds up. That's an example of a nastic response. So closing of the leaflet of what? Flamboyant tree due to low light intensity. Those are nastic response. So what about static response? When a whole organism moves towards or away from a stimuli that exhibited what? A static response. It's like how would I put it? It's like a taxi. It's like when you enter taxi, taxi can move you around. So when the whole organism move either towards, which is positive, or away, which is negative, we call it static response. So the direction of the response is related to the type of to that of the stimuli. So static movement are named according to the type of external stimuli. So we have phototaxis, we have chemotaxis, we have thermotaxis. We name them according to the type of stimuli. So it's very easy to understand. So phototaxis from the name responds to light. So euglena and chlamydomonas, they can swim towards light of low intensity. That's positive phototaxis. And when the light is too bright, when it's high intensity, they can swim away. That's negative phototaxis. So everyone goes away from light. That's also negative phototaxis. The whole organism move towards or away. So what about chemotaxis? In the moss plant, sperm, they move towards the chemical produced by the cell. So this is positive chemotaxis. So an whole organism is moving towards the chemical. So thermo, when we say thermo is heat. So multibacteria, they also swim from cold region to warm region. That's what we call positive chemotaxis. So what about trophic movement? So when a part of a plant, it moves in response to a directional. N for narcissism was what? Non-directional. Tropism is what? Directional. So we'll call it what? A trophic response or tropism. So the direction of the response related to the type to that of the stimulus, and it's positive if the plant grows towards the stimulus, and negative if it grows away from it. So tropism are very slow growth movements. So please think tropism, they are growth movements and they are very slow. They are also named according to the stimulus. We have phototropism that responds to light. We have hydrotropism that's what responds to water. So these are the examples of tropism: phototropism, geotropism, hydrotropism. We also have sigmotropism that responds to touch. Please take note of that. It's a very, very, these are points that you almost would not escape in JAMB. So it's things that you have to be very, very familiar with. Very familiar. So, and they're actually very easy to know. Photo means light. When it responds to light, we call it phototropism. Geo, gravity, GG. When it responds to gravity. Hydro, water. Sigmo, TT, touch. Very, very easy to know. So these are examples, pictures that depict the tropism that organisms undergo. So what about sleep movement in plants? So sleep movement of leaves, they are well known circadian rhythm. We know what we call circadian rhythm. The reason why, like the internal clock of your body. So they are the opening and closing of the night blooming or day blooming flower. There's some flowers that they are like that. Sometimes they open, sometimes they close. So the circadian rhythm are what endogenous, meaning they are controlled by an internal timing mechanism called the biological clock. Humans, we also have biological clock. That's present in our what was this organ called again? Pineal gland. So please think of that. So plants also have that biological clock. That's how we know it's time to sleep. When it's dark, it's time to sleep. When it's bright, it's time to wake up. So although the circadian rhythm are not triggered by an external stimulus, the environment does set and keep the biological clock in harmony with the external changes such as lightness and darkness. That's why when for animals, when it's dark, your body secretes melatonin that helps what you to fall asleep. But when it's dark, when it's bright, there's no secretion of melatonin, so you don't easily want to fall asleep. So that's how the external environment affects the internal environment. So that's it for today's topic. Thank you for staying with me till the very end, and I'll see you guys next time. And also, you guys should download the app.